Hello, everyone. It's Jayden from Student Pages. Hope you're all doing well today. Welcome back to another Spotlight interview. Today, we are joined by the voice actress Masumi. How are you doing?
I am doing great. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. It's fantastic to have you on today. We've got plenty to talk about. And I think the first thing that we should start off with is the recent BAFTA Game Awards, where you presented one of the awards. Such a prestigious event, huge event. How did that feel to be a part of that? And what would you say was the most memorable moment from it?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing to go to London. I've never been to London, and just everybody was so warm and encouraging and loving. And it was just very different from sort of the flashy parties that I'm used to seeing in Hollywood. Everybody was just, warm and encouraging and friendly and supportive. It was a lot of love energy at the ceremony. And obviously the most memorable moment is when I got to present it because that was my first time and I was very nervous like going through the rehearsals, but I was just really honored. I would love to go back again.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. Congratulations on,
Thank
getting
you.
to do that. That's a huge opportunity and must have been so
Mhm.
much fun, I imagine, like you say. So, moving on then to Assassin's Creed Shadows. Again, another phenomenal achievement of yours recently was landing the role of Naoe. It's such a huge character, a very complex character in such a fantastic game as well. Would you say there's any similarities between yourself and the character? And sort of could you provide a bit of insight as to what it was like to play a character like Naoe?
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying this at interviews too, but I really felt a connection with her right away. And those are the lucky moments you have when you get an audition and you kind of feel like you understand the character right away because you can personalize it. And I was very lucky in that way where I felt like now is very close with her father, and her father teaches her a lot about life and her skill sets, right? And I feel like I had that relationship with my father, and she's very pure and honest, which is sometimes bites her in the butt. And I kind of feel like I have the same sort of issue too. So I kind of felt like her quirkiness was very similar to me as well. And I think if I was in that time, 1500s, where there's so many war going on and watching your friends and family, die and get hurt, I think I would have the same emotional rage and pain to want to do something about it. So I feel like now his story was very relatable for me.
And what was it like to join the wider Assassin's Creed family, a game series that's been going on for so long? I remember I saw an interview of yours actually where you've sort of had very little knowledge as to what Assassin's Creed was before you joined on, but so quickly learned about the world building and stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
what was it like joining that?
I mean, it was crazy because even the audition process, it was very much like a movie and TV audition. But I just wasn't told anything about my specificity of my character. So I didn't know that I was a ninja or anything like that. And it just kind of everything came at me in a very casual drop kind of way. Oh, by the way, you are a ninja.
A cool thing to find out of the blue.
Yeah, yeah. And I was like, oh, that's kind of important, right? And so those were just very interesting and, eye-opening. And I was like, oh my gosh, so she's a ninja. So how does she move? How does she think? Like these were now things that I wanted to think about, obviously, that I wasn't focused on when I was auditioning because I didn't know about it. But yeah, I think the feeling of like, oh, wow, I'm part of the assassin really came gradually because I didn't know the game. And by talking with people and seeing the scale of the production and everything, that's when I started to really understand, oh, wow, I'm a part of the Assassins. That's really cool.
Yeah, no, a huge legacy, and honestly, you did such a great job joining onto that legacy. It felt so natural. Really,
Oh,
really incredible.
so kind of you. Thank you.
No, of course. Could you possibly give us a bit of an insight then to the casting process?
Mhm.
For a voice role, how does that differ from, film and TV roles?
If we're talking about auditions, then I didn't specifically audition for the voice role. So they were looking for an actor to play the Naoe for the mocap. And I don't think I knew that there was going to be that much VO, honestly, because it was very much focused on the acting. The audition process was kind of interesting because I think I first heard about the audition and I auditioned for it about like a year and a half ago before I got casted or something like that. And then I got the audition, I turned it in, I actually didn't hear anything about it. And then I would say like quite a while went by, and then they sent me the same audition again. And at that point, I declined the audition because I was very much happy with what I showed in the first audition. And if that wasn't what they liked, then I just wasn't the person. And then they actually called me back. and it was a different scene with Yasuke. But at the point, I didn't know it was Yasuke, right? I didn't know anything about. I just knew that there was another character that had this brotherly energy, and then it was on Zoom about an hour and a half, and I did it in all kinds of different ways for about an hour and a half with like 12 people there. And yeah, so it was very much focused on acting. I actually think that maybe I did another audition in the meantime, like for them for a different character or something. I don't really, I feel like I did 3 times, but it was a long time in between. So they took a
Yeah,
while looking for the character or the actor.
you
Yeah.
got to be so happy with the character you ended up with, though.
Yeah. 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 And then the voiceover part was really interesting because it was my first time and I realized that Japanese people are in general much more monotone than Western people's way of talking. And I think a lot of our Japanese actors are kind of portraying the authentic version of what Japanese people would be like. But when you translate that into VO sessions, then I'm not seeing the character and I'm just delivering the voice part. So I realize that there's this challenge between like authenticity is maybe to be monotone, but then the character, if it's also monotone, then you kind of have to bring it to life. You have to be able to communicate all of your emotion just with your voice, which is a concept that I didn't really think about before, you know? It was much harder than I anticipated because I thought it was just going to be a voice acting, but it's like a whole body acting. And I feel like when your whole body doesn't believe it, it really shows in the voice. And so I would say it was definitely a challenge, but I learned a whole lot.
Wow. Yeah, no, it sounds incredibly interesting just how much it, broadens. It's a lot broader than I thought. I thought it'd be sort of more straightforward in a sense, but I guess not. No,
Mhm.
it sounds
Yeah.
very complex.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I have so much respect for voice VO actors because man, that the craft is deep.
No, it sounds it. So, going a bit broader then, what kinds of characters do you typically enjoy taking on? Is there a category of character you usually like, or do you like to expand as much as you can?
So I very much feel like I kind of just started in this acting journey, honestly, and I feel like I have so many other characters that I would like to play so I can, expand myself. But so far I've been playing a lot of characters who start out with not all the cards stacked for the character and then you have to sort of make the choice of either fight for it or just be sad and peace out kind of, it's a character that has to fight for herself and for her life. And it's a lot of transformation. And I think I've been really loving that kind of character because I very much feel like I can relate to that, in my life. Even coming to America, it's still feel like I'm learning English and I still feel like I'm learning the culture and everything. And I had to, fight for myself and for my voice. So I feel like those are the characters that I most resonate with.
Oh, that's so important. That's really sweet to hear, actually. That's really nice. For characters in media at the moment, what characters do you think are doing well for franchises and pieces of media? Do you think there is a kind of character at the moment that's particularly speaking to people?
I feel like female empowerment is in right now. Yeah, I don't believe that any character, any human being is just straight out amazing and strong. And a lot of the heroes, characters right now are created to be just already off the bat very strong and it's a character that doesn't have to fight to get there, right? And personally I don't get empowered by that. I get empowered by watching other women fight to get to that place. We're not just strong, we're not just demure, we're not just anything, right? There's so many complexity to who we are. And I wish there was more of that being shown. Actually, when we were shooting for Assassin's Creed Shadows 2, Jonathan Dumont, who is the creator of this story, he was Shadows. He was telling me that one of the reasons why he really liked my acting was because once the audition was for the strong assassin girl, everybody played her to be just very masculine and very, strong, but in a masculine way. And he said that he really liked my character because I had vulnerability and strength, and I showed both of them in my performance. And that's something that I find to be very important. We're layered, and that's what makes us interesting and, somebody that people would want to fight for. So,
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's interesting as well because I think we're in an age of the internet at the moment where there's so many online trolls that are so quick to jump to these accusations of the term that I see so often thrown around, which I think is such a baseless word with no real meaning, is woke. and it's ridiculous. But you've made an excellent point there in that it's so important that we actually see the stories of the characters reach the points that they're at. Because, like you said, there is kind of a problem in storytelling with characters starting out where realistically should be an end goal. I think those stories, like you say, are the important ones. And yeah, I absolutely agree that those are the stories that we need to see and that need to be told.
Yeah.
We can't
Yeah.
just jump to the ending.
Right, exactly. What is there to watch, right? There's no journey to go on. So, yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So if you could just delve a little bit then into the background of yourself and where you've come from and how you've gotten to the place that you are now, was this always what you wanted to do, or has there been a bit of a road to get to where you are?
So this was definitely not something I anticipated or thought I would be doing at all. My mom was a child actor when she was young, and she couldn't pursue that dream because of family reasons. I used to watch a lot of movies with my mom because she'll watch like three in a night sometimes, which is a lot. And
Wow.
yeah, it's like, wow. And I would, watch as much as I can with her. And we had that bond of loving similar movies and TV shows, mostly in Japan. I didn't grow up watching American TV shows. But yeah, that was the extent of movie knowledge for me. And I came to America to become a singer-songwriter after I kind of had this like realization of that was really important to me after the earthquake in Japan. So I decided to stop my university that I was going to. I was learning like anthropology and, sociology and things like that. And I came to America to go to music school. And then from then on, for about 7 years, that's all I did. I toured with my band. I had a trio band and singer-songwriter with my guitar, my own music kind of thing. And then I came to a point where, a few things happened. This is a entertainment industry, and in the US, I'm an Asian girl. There's all kinds of obstacles that I found along the way. And there was opportunity in Japan, but I wanted to stay in America. So kind of like I didn't know what to do with my life. And then that's when I met my husband, who was an actor. And he just suggested to me to taking acting classes just to take my mind away from music. And I did that. And 3 months after taking that class, I somehow booked a lead for a movie, action thriller movie with Jonathan Rhys Meyers as my co-star. And I went to Brazil and I did my stunts. My first time standing in front of a bunch of people and cameras pointed at me, and I did not know what was going to happen with me or if I was going to survive that experience. But that became my foundation of my understanding of movie making. And I just kind of feel like I was thrust into it. And then COVID hit right after. So I didn't really get to have the opportunity with talking to other people. What is the journey like? What's it like to be an actor? What's the life like? And it's been a journey. I mean, honestly, like acting life is very different from music. And I'm constantly in awe with people's mental strength. And yeah, I'm still unraveling all of the things that happen and how I want to keep on going. Like what is it that I'm wanting out of this? It's a constant conversation with myself.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, it sounds like a right jump from the get-go, to be honest. It's
Mm,
crazy just how quickly you've reached the
mm,
place that you are. And it's funny to hear as well that are also involved in music, because I think that is the life of a creative person, in
mm.
that you settle into one aspect of it, but then you discover another and then another, and
Yeah.
they all eventually just culminate
Yeah.
in this one big creative life. And I think it's so wonderful to watch that unfold. It's a great thing to happen to anybody.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I would say that writing music and singing it, it was all about just kind of telling the truth of my feelings, right? Because it's my own words, it's my own. And so I kind of had a basis of what I wanted my art to be like. And I kind of approached acting from the same place because that's all I knew. And I think that really helped. Yeah, for sure. Music and film or acting, I think there is definitely a crossover and it feeds each other. Mm.
So, with us being student pages, then we like to give advice to students wherever we can. So, for students that want to do what you do, or perhaps are already on the road to doing what you do, what advice have you got for them to get to a higher place like yourself?
I don't want to say I'm in a higher place, honestly, because I'm still trying, not there yet. But I think two things I realized that impacted me the most. And one is that I'm naturally a perfectionist. And I realized that it was more important to be honest than to be a perfectionist. Because in a way, perfectionism can be copied. Other people can do a similar perfectionistic work, but an honest work cannot be copied because it filters through your life experience. It filters through just your uniqueness of how you saw your life and how you see your life, right? So if it's honest, then it can't be copied. And also, no matter how much people might not like your performance, once it's out, you can still stand by and say, that was my honest truth. And I worked really hard at telling the truth, you know? So that has really helped me not become, for example, a slave to the breakdown characters. Very important thing for me to constantly remind myself, I'm just going to be honest to how I feel, not be perfect. The second part of it is how important it is to have space in life that is not acting. I realized that once acting became, you know, a lot of auditions and you have actor friends and constantly conversation about acting happens all the time. And I think that was important for my growth, but I realized that I was not prioritizing living life anymore. And I think in order to be alive on screen, you have to be alive in your own life, right? And that was something that took me a little while to realize. I think all of us, we work really hard and we really want this dream to come true. So we focus on it like, you know, this, and we forget that we're human, that all of our art is coming from life itself. So I consciously take time not talking about acting things with actor friends. I would say, like, let's not talk about acting or acting related work at all. Let's have a picnic, go walk in nature, something that is just completely different. That's very important for me.
It's so funny that you mentioned that because we just had another fantastic actor, Presley Alexander, on a few days ago,
Huh.
said the exact same thing about actually being able to balance the difference between personal relationships and talking about work because it
Wow.
can get so overwhelming, I'm sure.
Yes, it can be so overwhelming. And especially I'm in LA where everybody that, you know, I look around is wanting to do modeling, music, acting, you know, one of those. We're all kind of in this hustle energy. Yeah, but I really think that success is like not just about career success, but your whole life. You know, if you don't have a meaningful relationship with community and friends, would you still be happy with like a thriving, you know, work? Like I wouldn't, you know, I want everything to be wholesomely there for me. So, but it's hard. I'm not saying like I do a great job at it. It's always like, you know, work in progress, right?
So, taking a bit of a strange pivot then, with social media, how do you find that relationship? Because we've had a lot of different answers to this question specifically, in that some people hate social media, don't understand how to use it, and avoid it like the plague, and others that are fantastic at utilizing it. Where do you sit on the spectrum? I'm curious.
I'm actually curious to hear what you might say too, because this is a great question, honestly. So even when I was doing music, I needed to promote my show and, you know, all of that through social media, and I hated it. I hated it because I felt like there had to be a space where I get to be an artist and I get to be a human. And I was very much against Instagram that was so evasive of your personal space. And that's where it thrived, you know, Instagram, I'm talking about Instagram because that's what I use the most, but it felt like it didn't allow the person to just be person. They wanted the artist to constantly be an artist. And I had a really love and hate relationship with it for a long time. And then now I'm realizing that I still do. I still like have a hard time being so in front of people and in front of a massive amount of people that you don't even get to see. How do you create connections with people you can't see, right? But then I do feel that there is a lot of strength that comes through that kind of medium as well, because you can tell that I'm really struggling with it because I have
Hey,
to.
it's a very complex subject, to be
Yeah, it
honest.
is. I just started. I actually this year, this month really to be exact, I'm starting to try to be more active on it. And I think we all know that it helps us, right? It helps us. There's a way to connect with people out there that you can't otherwise connect with. There's a lot of strengths and pros and cons about it. We all know that. But I think the most important thing is to finding again with your honesty. If I'm showing up in this way, I still feel authentic in myself. But if I go this far, I'm not anymore and I'm just exhausted. Then I just have to find that boundaries, right? And continue on to do it that way so that I can still help myself And also, hopefully, my journey can inspire somebody else. I mean, we're in that day and age. I do think that you can't avoid being on social media.
Oh no, it's literally impossible these days, to be honest. I think it's to a degree kind of sad that it's impossible to avoid it, but equally, if you don't adapt, you're gonna get drowned out. You know, it's just the way it
Mhm.
is.
Yeah, we have to navigate it, and it has to be an ongoing conversation about how to make it healthy environment, right? Because even with this video game, I have received a lot of really shocking comments as well. And you think, oh, wow, I'm a human being and you're a human being, and can't, I would never say that to anybody, right? But it allows for that kind of toxicity as well. So how do you navigate? It's not a straight answer for sure.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that actually, because I was going to touch on this next in that actors, for whatever they get cast in, you know, whenever those announcements are made, there's always some level of scrutiny. But for yourself, you played one of the first female protagonists in an Assassin's Creed game that has always been frustratingly masculine. That's the truth of the matter. And I remember when that announcement was made, the conflict on the internet was crazy. There were people celebrating, saying, "Oh, this is so incredible," and then there were those people as well. You know,
Oh,
yeah,
I didn't know
and
about this actually.
yeah, no, it was a very big story at the time. But then I remember when the game came out and people saw, you know, the full-fledged version of that character, all those people went completely silent, you know, and I think that was wonderful to see on one hand. But I suppose what I'm trying to get at is, how do you feel about that level of scrutiny being given towards actors? Because you said you've seen some degree of it yourself with some of the comments. How do you feel about the scrutiny, and do you ever get nervous when announcements are made?
I actually don't get nervous. I think I probably trained myself with being a singer-songwriter and being in front of people, because you start by like writing your songs. This is all your song. It's like you're pouring your heart out, and then you go to a bar and restaurants and you're singing, and some people just really don't care about listening to you, and they're very obvious about it. And I think what I learned is that, and I mentioned this before, but it's really about how much you are going to be proud of yourself. That's all you can really have for sure, right? I know I put in my heart and soul. And I think that's why I make sure that every single project that I'm involved with, whatever it is, I make sure that I'm very proud that I put in all the work that I can. Because once it's out there, people can say that it was a shitty job, that were you even paid for this job? Like people can tear it apart, but as long as you're good with yourself, you can keep going. Because as much as people complain about, some people could complain about it. I was the one who went through the journey. I learned, I experienced, I am more wise for what I've done, and nobody can take away that part of me, right? So I just always remember that. But of course, I try not to be too swayed by people's compliments or their negative comments. Like they're both, if I'm really, really happy about somebody's comment and really, really sad about another negative comment, that means that I feel like that means that I'm not certain of how I feel about the performance. So I try to be centered and know exactly what it is that I feel about it. And some days I cried, man. I was like, I accidentally saw a negative comment, but it was kind of like a death threat comment, and I was like, oh, this is just, don't even let it. And then I started crying. But
Yeah, no, I think it's when it goes to those extremes and it becomes impossible to avoid that it's overwhelming.
yeah, yeah, because I
It's
guess
never nice.
right, right, right. You try to understand, why did this person feel the need to go there? And like, you start to ask these like why questions that you just shouldn't be asking. But yeah, but honestly, I want to make sure, put out there that 90% of the comments has been so warm and positive on my feed. I'm sure if I go out there, it will be very different, but and I'm just grateful that so many people has reached out to said something nice. So yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because, like I say, when the game came out and people saw the characters and the story and the voice work that it integrated, it just all went silent. You know, I remember the game's release and just how flawed people were. It was amazing to see.
Thank you for saying that.
No, of course. So with actors and actresses then, are there any in particular that you look up to whose work that you admire?
So many, like Judy Foster, Michelle Pfeiffer. There's a Japanese lady who played Members of Geisha. She's like the older lady that runs the geisha house. Her name is Momoi Kaori. Sorry, Momoi Kaori. And just so many people. But I would say like who I look up to the most right now is Viola Davis because she's very outspoken about needing to accept yourself first. And I think that not just as accepting yourself, but as a female, not relying on your pretty or, needing that kind of validation. And that's something that I really, really find to be so important because when I grew up in Japan, actresses in Japan meant that you were gorgeous. It wasn't so much about the acting skills, it was so much about the way you looked. And I still think it's very toxic when actress equals beautiful, or right, attractive. And it doesn't, you take away the talents or the skills or all of these stuff and you just narrow it down to whether you're pretty or not. And Viola Davis has been doing an amazing job talking about it. And I wish more actresses spoke up about it because that's one thing that I'm really worried about with social media and all these stuff where we're very heavily in AI and everything, very heavily focused on being perfect,
So, if you could, this is probably the most fun question. We always ask this one for everyone that we have on. If you could pluck a dream role out of the sky, any kind of character, any kind of setting, any sort of medium, what do you think that role would look like for you?
I've always wanted to play like a spy.
Okay.
Yeah, growing up, when me and my mother would move back and forth from Japan and America, especially, well, actually, both in Japan and America, we would, and at the airport, we would always be taken away to a room because the people thought we were spy or that my mother was spy. And it was
Wow.
really, yeah, it was interesting in all these questions. And, because my mom's English is fluent in English and Japanese as well. And all of this fear was interesting, but also like, wow, there must have been a lot of spies that, foster this fear. And yeah, I would love to do something like that for sure.
Cool. You should probably pitch this to someone, it's like that.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that sounds cool. Absolutely tremendous. Congratulations on everything that you've done. And yeah, thank you ever so much for speaking with me.
This was so much fun. Thank you so much. You're awesome to talk to.